I threw on the 315 on the front squat, and I did it 3 times, which I've never done before in my entire life. And it was a personal best, and nothing else changed. I just added in the supplement. My food stayed the same, my training stayed the same. It was just added this pre-workout, and it made me so much stronger, you have no idea.
Tastes great, dissolves quick, dissolves clean, it's non-stim, doesn't give you the jitters, the hair twitch, the burning face. I'm actually able to do more work. My working sets have gone up. I've been on it in 2 weeks now. I've probably increased my bench by at least 15 pounds easy.
The GIFD Labs Primousine for a week now probably. And man, this stuff is legit, man. My working weights were much easier. It hit all reps, sets. I even had to raise the weight.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to BioS3 Raw TV. The big news the last couple days, Big Ramy is now going to be working with Neil Hill. Yoda, they call him Yoda Neil Hill, who is Flex Lewis's coach, William Bonac. I mean, there's countless people that have worked with Neil, who does the Y3 training, which I don't know too much about. Believe me, I do know it's a hybrid type training, which Milos Sarshev, I believe, was one of the first guys out there to have a hybrid type training, which Milos's actual training is giant sets, but he uses every single technique you could ever use that bodybuilders are using out there. Like every technique is used in Milos, and I know that Neil has a specific thing that he does with his, and it is kind of a hybrid best of type training. It's not really the FST7, which was like fascia stretch. He has his own thing. Now, what is my take on the Ramy working with Neil? Now, he's worked with Dennis James. Ramy has worked with you know, the Camel Crew. He's worked with Chris Aceto. He's worked with, I mean, countless other coaches, and we've never seen the full potential of Ramy thus far. We've seen, I think, the best conditioning when he worked with Chris Aceto, but he went back to the Camel Crew, and it seems like when he was at the Camel Crew, size is the prize. Plain and simple. It's all about being fucking big. Now, these guys come in condition, don't get me wrong, but it seems like the bigger their physiques get, including Rulli, the bigger they get kind of distorted, and they start to lose certain separations in certain places. And Rulli, we saw actually come in tighter and harder, and it almost looks like he's not really gaining size at the rate that he was before. Maybe they finally figured out he's got enough size. Like, you don't need to be any fucking bigger. Like, if he Rulli keeps going the direction of Ramy getting bigger and bigger, I think his place is actually going to drop. And I think that Ramy at this point, being with the Camel Crew, bigger, bigger, bigger. They want to shock everybody with size, but the Olympia is not about size. It's just not. People can point at Ronnie Coleman and say, well, Ronnie was so big. Like, yes, Ronnie was big, but it was the conditioning. It was the separation. It was the hardness. It was the fullness. It was not just about Ronnie's size. He had a combination. Like, when he turned around and hit that glute, like his glutes went half down his fucking hamstrings. Like, unlike other people where they're at the top of their hamstrings, he had these huge, long glutes that inserted the middle of his hamstrings that had fucking striations right down to like the insertions. Like, it was really about, he was big, but he was conditioned. Like, you know, Dorian Yates was big, but conditioning. Like, Lou Ferrigno was bigger than Dorian Yates. Jean-Pierre Fuchs was bigger than Dorian Yates. Lou Ferrigno was bigger than I started Lou Ferrigno. What was the other guy's name? Greg Kovacs was bigger than Dorian Yates. None of them ever beat him. You know, some of them didn't even get to the Olympia because it's not just about size. So I think Ramy's big problem, it's not about conditioning, because I do believe he can get conditioned. Because I remember seeing pictures of him when he was in the amateurs. He was pretty fucking conditioned. But they put that Dream Tan on him. They were using Dream Tan over there at the time, I think, in the Middle East. And the Dream Tan actually goes into the crevices of the muscles and actually smooths you out a bit and takes away separation. Protan, Jantana, anything kind of spray, the California Tan, the other one was sunless rays, whatever, the super sunless tanning rays or sun rays or whatever the fuck it is. There's multiple ones out now that actually go on and they make you look harder when you put the tan on. But Ramy looked hard even when he had the Dream Tan on back when he was an amateur. all of a sudden it was like size game, size. The bigger he got, the less separation he had. And that happened with Yates. That actually happened with Ronnie Coleman too. The bigger you get, the less separation you have. Now, this day and age, they're not looking for the mass monsters. They don't give a fuck about the Olympia, about the mass monsters. They want, and they've proven with Phil Heath, not a mass monster. Big, right? Big, but not a mass monster. You know, Sean Roden, although big, technically not a mass monster. Dexter Jackson, not a mass monster. William Bonac, not a mass monster. So they've, you know, kind of put out there that they're not looking for the biggest guy, right? But you also can't be just the most shredded guy, because the guy who's 140 pounds is not going to beat those guys. So there is a balance, and I think that Ramy working with Neil, it's not about the training. I really don't believe it is, because I know people that know Ramy personally have been out there training, and they say that Ramy moves fucking weight. He said, like a friend of mine who's an IFBB pro, we all know him, but it doesn't matter his name. But literally said when he came back from fucking Oxygen Gym training over there, he said, now I know why they call him Big Ramy. He goes, Big Ramy can move some big fucking weights. He's like, and what's weird is they never actually take videos of him moving that massive amount of weight. A lot of times we see the Camel Crew, they're like doing these pumping exercises where it doesn't even look like they're training very heavy. And that, again, is just part of that training. But I don't believe it's the training. I don't necessarily believe it's the diet. I believe the problem with Ramy and these other guys, whoever the fuck they are, whether it's Rulli and all these guys, I believe the problem with the conditioning comes down to drugs. These guys are using massive amounts of drugs, and even if they're using the quote-unquote contest drugs that make you harder, they're using them in such massive amounts that they're having these androgenic effects. It's having a weird effect on the body, even though they take stuff like Cytodrin, which completely drops your fucking estrogen down to 0. Okay, so it's not necessarily an estrogen-related thing. They take the prolactin, fucking anti-prolactin drugs like cabergoline and shit like that, so it's not that. So why the fuck do these guys keep getting smoother as they get bigger? You never see a guy walk on stage at 300 pounds that looks hard like the guy at 250. Like, even when Dorian was getting bigger and bigger and bigger, Ronnie was getting bigger and bigger, Levrone bigger and bigger, the bigger they got, the less separation they had, the less muscularity they had. Now, some people say it's from insulin use, okay? That could be it. I don't know, because I've never used that amount of insulin like that, and I know they're using large amounts of insulin, but these guys are using androgens and even these anabolics. Like, people don't understand. They think like Anavar, Winstrol, these are anabolics, okay? They're not androgens, they're anabolics. They're used pre-contest so that you're cutting out the high androgens to retain less water. But if you're already taking diuretics and you're using estrogen blockers and prolactin blockers and all this other shit, and you're still retaining water, technically it's not the normal things that we're thinking of, okay? It's not aromatization. It's not high prolactin levels. It's not high estrogen levels. It's not that going on. But we see it over and over again, and we see this in these mass monsters, right? We don't see the smaller guys having this hard time getting lean, getting ripped, getting hard. It's the bigger guys. Now, I do believe that in, whether it's Ramy or whether it's a Camel Crew, whoever it was, had it in their head, 300 pounds, 300 pounds, 300 pounds, be on stage at 300 pounds. For some reason, like when they were weighing his ass in, he was 300 pounds, and he was like in a fucking sweatsuit. I was thinking to myself, God damn, that's big. And his face wasn't super sucked out, so I was like, he's big as fuck, and he might be ripped. He might be shredded under there. If he is, that's fucking crazy, because he has good symmetry, he has a good waist, he has all these things, but we saw him strip down, and he was smooth. So the 300 pounds, and like you could see it was technically, it was water, but these guys are loaded with diuretics. So my thing is, these guys are pushing the drugs, okay? No doubt about it. I've sat down, I've talked to a few of these guys, more than a few of these guys, and listened to what they're taking, and the amounts that they're taking, I don't even know how they could put it in their fucking body. That's to be 100% honest with you. We're talking about, I mean, stuff that we thought was crazy back in the day is not even close to what these fucking guys are doing now. And I do believe that they feel like to level up and get better, they not only have to train harder, eat more, diet harder, but they have to increase the drugs too. So they're already taking stuff that we would never, I mean, even pros 10 years ago would never even think about taking now. They're fucking loading up on it. And they're not just loading up on it for a show. They're loading up on it year fucking round. And this is part of the problem. Now, I do believe that Neil Hill, Chris Aceto are two guys that, although drugs are obviously involved, and that's part of coaching somebody for the show, I also believe that these guys are not stupid. They're able to get guys in shape when other gurus are not. So I do believe that they have a system that they use, and I bet you, sure as shit, dimes to dollars, and this comes from experience. I was taking more than I should have taken when I was younger. And I didn't have anybody around me to explain how much I should be taking. I was taking what I thought or what other people at the gym were saying they were taking for shows and stuff like that. You know, 2,000 milligrams of test, 2,000 milligrams of Deca, whatever it was. And I started working Kevin Levrone, and I showed Kevin, you know, we were good friends, and I didn't hold anything back. I showed him the paper with what I was taking, and he took a fucking pen, and he started going, psh, 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 and fucking just crossing shit off. He's like, you don't need this, you don't need that, you don't need this. He's like, what is that drug? I don't even know what that is. Like, he didn't even know what some of them were, and he reduced the drugs drastically. I was on no clenbuterol, no growth hormone. I think I was just taking test. I was taking equipoise and a couple other things leading into that show. And lo and behold, that show was one of my best looks. Any other show that I did that had just as good a look to it, I was loaded on a lot more gear. So I know for a fact, and I was off gear, I was off all drugs for that show a week out. All drugs, no orals, no fucking nothing. And I was watching my body like tighten up, tighten up, tighten up, tighten up as the show was getting closer. And I'm thinking to myself, how the fucking, and Levrone told me flat out, he said, you know, when we go over to Europe, he goes, and we're traveling and shit, or we do stuff like, you know, we hit up different shows around here. He goes, when I go out to the Olympia, he goes, I fly out. He goes, I don't take drugs with me when I fly out. So he goes, I don't have any drugs when I get there. He goes, and then I'll be there the whole time, not on anything. Like literally like 20 days when they're traveling, nothing, taking nothing. And they're still fucking doing show after show on that European Grand Prix. He said literally that, he goes, I would dry out more and more. He goes, and you know, guys would be over there loading up on stuff, taking stuff to bring back with them from the European tour. He goes, but they weren't even fucking taking shit while they were over there. Like they're done with poking themselves with fucking needles for at least 2-3 weeks after the Olympia. He goes, and we get to the Olympia, we're not taking anything for the week before that. And that's what it really made me see. Like a lot of these guys are pushing drugs leading into the show. And these top pros, these top guys that were known for conditioning were coming off the drugs towards the show, which gave them a different look. And I do believe these guys that are mass sponsors are, from what I'm being told by them themselves, are pushing the drugs as the show comes up, taking more and more to try to stay full while they're dieting and stuff. And it's having a negative effect on their physique. So we'll see what Neil Hill can do with Ramy. Like I said, you know, Neil's pretty well known for bringing people in condition. Flex Lewis, William Bonac, these guys. And we're just going to have to wait and see. But I think it's a good move. I think you had Ramy, while he was over at the Camel Crew, that whole thing ran its course. And I think that nothing good could have come from him staying over there. He would have just been playing that size game. And we saw now that the judges are plain and simple telling you, Ramy, we don't want more size, okay? We don't need any more size from you. You have so much muscle on your fucking frame. Just come in condition, come in with a tight waist, and you are going to fucking beat the fuck out of a lot of people and possibly win that title, depending on who's got it. Yeah, I think that it's a good move for Ramy to go over there. He hasn't hit the right combination. And this whole thing is like a, you know, that's exactly what it's like. It's like a combination lock. Like you're looking for the right combination. And once you have it, it unlocks the lock. You now have a combination of things that can be adjusted from then on, where the body will still change, but you can tweak things knowing where to begin to where your results came from before. So we'll see what happens. And I'm looking forward to seeing how Ramy, you know, makes the transition to working with Neil, as well as what happens to his physique in the next year, because I really do like Ramy, not as a bodybuilder, but as a person also. He's a super nice guy. I've talked to him a couple times, just ecstatic and super happy to be a bodybuilder. And that's about the most purest thing I've seen in this sport in a long time, is Ramy's smile about being a bodybuilder. He loves it so much, truly from his heart, that he can't stop smiling ear to ear every fucking day just because he's a bodybuilder. I mean, how many of us would want that life? Not necessarily being a bodybuilder, but being super happy when we wake up in the morning because we are and doing exactly what we want to be and what we want to do. So good luck to Ramy, good luck to Neil. We'll, of course, all be watching, and I'm super interested to see what happens in the next year. BioStrengthTraining@gmail.com. Leave comments down below, but don't fight. www.biostrength.com is the blog. It's the new Ramy bicep, and we are out.